Welcome back, everybody. My name is Broxton Davis. I'm a performance media analyst at one of the top advertising agencies in the world. I'm also the host of the BroxtenDigital Show, the podcast you're watching right now, where I bring some of the greatest minds of marketing and advertising on and ask them the questions that are going to help students and young professionals be able to excel in their career. We've talked to a lot of great professionals already, and we have another great one lined up for tonight, this time from the creative side of advertising. I'm obviously not in the creative world, so I already know I'm going to learn a ton. I'm super excited. This is also the future president of Adcraft Detroit, ladies and gentlemen, Fran Westbrooks.
How's everybody doing tonight?
What's up,
Thank you,
Fran? How's it
Brox.
going?
It's good, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. I know you're a busy guy, man.
Yeah, no. I'm happy to be here and carve out some time for you guys.
Heck yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah,
hopefully
definitely.
you walk away smarter than when you walked in.
Yeah, I mean, hey, when I met you, I know you got to do a little presentation for part of the group that I was in, and I had so many great takeaways from that. So I've really been looking forward to this. So really excited to kind of jump into things. I want to just kind of start, this is kind of what we start with, on a lot of the guests is just kind of how did you yourself break into advertising? I know everybody's got their different unique story, so would love to hear how, you went from crazy CEO, future president of Adcraft, which we'll get into all that stuff, but
Mhm.
everybody starts somewhere. So how'd you break in, Fran?
Um, Very interesting. I my path was definitely not traditional in no way, shape, or form. Traditional in uh, each step that I took to get to where I am now, but how I got in, I literally walked off the street, so to speak. So I was in LA and I was doing music videos. I was producing music videos at the time. And me and a couple people had a company and we were doing relatively well. And I decided to come back east, come back home to handle that part of open up that part of the business because we're on the West Coast. So when I returned home, a friend of mine asked, "Hey, I can't take this job as a copywriter. This ad agency is trying to hire a copywriter, and I can't really take the job. Do you want to go in?" So my curiosity is really what took me in there. I had no idea what a copywriter was, but it was advertising. It was another stream of income, and it was creative. So I said, "Okay, let me go." And I went in and I had a portfolio of music video treatments. And at the time, that's what you did with music videos. You just got the tape or the demo and you wrote whatever you felt the video would look like, and then you submitted that to A&R. So I had a whole portfolio full of those. And the creative director at the time, his name was Juan Roberts, had a shout out to Juan. He looked at it and he said, "Okay, do you know Photoshop?" Like, no. Do you draw? No. He's like, "You're not an art director?" I was like, "No, I don't even know what that is." He said, "Okay, you know what? Then these are your ideas." Yeah, these are my ideas. "Okay, well, I'll teach you how to write. You'll be a copywriter." So if he would have said I would have been a producer, that's what I would have been inside of the space. But he said, "We'll teach you how to write," and I became a junior copywriter literally on the spot that day.
That's
And
so
that's how,
cool.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I've been talking
Mhm.
to so many professionals and like there's those little moments in your career where like it plays out how it plays out, but if it would have went different, you'd probably be in a totally different spot now.
Totally.
So we'll kind of get into it how you got to where you're at now, but now just so
Mhm.
everybody knows, now you are currently running Boulevard. Is it Boulevard?
Yes,
Just straight up Boulevard? Is
Boulevard.
that what you
Yeah,
prefer?
we call it Boulevard. You might
Okay.
see it. Our LLC is Boulevard Content.
Okay. I know
But
you see
but
the BLVD logo everywhere. So cool.
yeah, yeah. Some iterations of it, but we landed on something finally.
Nice. Yeah. So you're running Boulevard right now, about to
Hmm.
be the next AdCraft president. A lot
Hmm.
of stuff on the plate. So obviously, you've taken that junior copywriting role and ran with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of want to get into. So, when you started out in advertising, it was a lot different than kind of how it looks now.
Hmm.
The outlook for a lot of people graduating, trying to get jobs, the job hunt's kind of kicking off this time of year. It's really tough out there. People are struggling. There's just not as many junior roles, especially at the large agencies where a lot of people look to go early in their career. So I
Hmm.
guess, obviously it was different for you, but you still get a good insight into what's happening nowadays. What would you say as far as breaking in, what would you kind of advise for these students who are, just graduated and really looking to break into advertising?
Yeah, I think you probably and I know it doesn't feel like it, but you guys probably have the biggest opportunity out of any of us that came before you, simply because everything was so regimented. Everything had a position to it, and there was only so many positions. There were rarely was there a specialty position, so you kind of fit in whatever the line item was that the client was paying for. Now you guys come in with a whole different mindset in terms of how you talk to each other, how you talk to consumers, the titles that you use. Influencer was never a part of anything, but as an influencer, what would that look like going into an agency? So there's these hybrid models that you guys are creating for yourselves outside of advertising that we have to adapt to. Now, the smart ones adapt to where you guys are and how you guys are actually activating in the market. So I would say whatever you specialize in, or if you know that already, or whatever your passion point is, that can drive what you do inside of an agency. So I think you guys have a really good opportunity to carve your own path.
No, definitely. That is like some really great advice there, and something I think that maybe a lot of people kind of sleep on early in their career, just because, like, you don't really think too much about your passions. You're just sitting there thinking, I need to get in, I need to get my foot in the door. But I
Mhm.
think kind of what you're saying too, and this is something I've leaned on more, is like taking that thing you're passionate about, and you can start leaning into it outside of a 9 to 5 or outside of the classroom, and boom, before you know it, you might have some pretty crazy experience.
Hmm. Yeah. If you look at a lot of the positions that agencies are tapping, or the people that agencies are tapping, it's outside of the discipline of advertising. Influence. I keep using influencer as an example, but influencers are key drivers for sales for a lot of brands, and influencers hold a lot of weight. There's multiple layers of influencers, micro, macro. It's just tons and tons of influencers. But the point is, they they possess a skill set that you can't teach in school. They possess a skill set that is not a part of the agency model. Now it's becoming that, but they've worked their way into the system where now they're invaluable to a brand and to an agency.
Yeah, definitely. Well, now I'm curious, Fran. So if you could go back to when you were, just wrapping up, like 22, just about to break in,
Mhm.
would you have just been like, in this kind of environment, just like, hey, I'm gonna get my own thing rolling, start getting some content out there, build in public type of thing? Or would you, sit there and grind out those hundreds of job applications it might take to maybe get that agency seat?
Yeah, I think just by my nature, you know, a quick story. The biggest issue I had walking in the door was I couldn't sit down for longer than an hour. I
That's
just felt
tough.
like I felt like I was a kid, behind a desk, and it just did not feel comfortable to me because I was always moving, always mobile, always, just moving around, thinking on my feet, standing a lot. In production, you stand a lot. So actually sitting behind a desk was a task for me. So to that, I've always been a person that I love to see ground level activation across the board. Boulevard is is purposeful in terms of the name because culture comes from the streets. So Boulevard is representative of everything that goes through all type of communities. A boulevard can go from the richest community to the poorest community, and it changes as you go. So for me, being outside of the bubble, so to speak, of corporate advertising, I probably would have ground it out like that. I would have just grinded it that way, and I would have made sure that whatever I was doing, I still had latitude to go outside of corporate to do it.
No, yeah, that is some great advice. And I think it's just refreshing to hear, because I'm sure there's, thousands of students sitting there right now, just got their degree, they're super excited. And, after the 100th rejection letter, it's like, am I doing the right thing? But there
Yeah.
is always that option of like, go get something
Mhm.
going and who knows where it'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll probably make more doing that than you will waiting. That's not to diminish what people feel about advertising because there are a lot of young adults out there that really want to get into the mechanics of advertising. They really want to learn it, and that's great because we need we need that too. But if that's not really your style, and your degree was just your paper to get you into a space, create your own space. While you're getting in your space, best time to look for a job is while you have one. So if you're investing in yourself, you're not really looking. You're just waiting to land something, or you're waiting to, show what you've produced or what you've done or what you've impacted. And you walk in a little bit more valuable than walking in just as a student out of college.
Definitely, no, that's some great advice. I know my mom always told me, don't walk away from a job until you got one lined up. And definitely
Yeah.
to your point, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah. Hats off to your moms. Yeah.
But yeah, no, and that's totally. I agree with you, and I just wanted to say, like, that's not to bash the agency look at all. I'm in the big
No.
agency scene. I think it's a great spot for young
Hmm.
advertisers to kind of really fully understand, what goes into doing a full like national wide campaign and all
Hmm.
the different activations across, digital, print, experiential. There's
Hmm.
so much that goes into it, but it's just getting harder and harder with the current climate of the world and everything. So I think it's good for people to talk about, there is those other options, and you can definitely still pivot to the agency even later in your career. I've seen plenty of people come over mid to three quarters of the way through their career. So
Yeah. I mean, it's enough room for all. And it's like going to college. When you go to school, you pick a school that you feel fits you. So some people love small universities. Some people love, the Ohio States and the Michigans. They love huge campuses that take up half a city. And it's okay. It's nothing wrong. No wrong answers. But I think advertising is the same. Do you want to get into what I call big box advertising? Or do you want a small little independent shop? It just really depends on who you are and how you're going to contribute to that agency.
definitely no, I don't think I could have said it better myself. One thing I want to talk about with you, Fran, I know like you're clearly somebody who has like found your niche, found your passion, and
Hmm.
you're getting to do it every day. I can tell, you're just on fire about running your creative agency. I guess I want to talk a little bit about like earlier in your career, kind of like finding that you started as a junior copywriter, but
Hmm.
how were you able to kind of discover like, one, I want to be doing creative work at the highest level, and two, obviously you're managing a ton of people, which is a whole other aspect of it. Would just
Hmm.
love kind of how you decided like, hey, this is the route I want to go.
Yeah, where I walked in was an anomaly. I don't think it'll ever be another place like it. I walked into a place. It was called Don Coleman and Associates, and they had just got their first big piece of business, which was Chrysler. So when I walked in, literally everyone could fit inside the conference room. So when to be able to be that close to how the mechanics of an agency works is breakthrough in terms of where I am now. Going to a bigger agency, I would have never learned that. It would have took me far more years and years and years. I may not have ever opened my own agency. But the fact that I was right there at ground level and literally putting my brick, on the foundation to build this agency was it was an experience that a lot of people don't get. That you just don't get it now. And as we built the agency over the span of, I would say, 20 years, something like that, it became a $800 million agency, a $1 billion agency now. And it came from a space that didn't exist at the time, which was multicultural advertising. So it was African American, Hispanic. And as we started to grow that business, we started to see how that the browning of America, how that was coming into fold, and how marginalized people had a voice. So for me, it was just bigger than advertising. It was, okay, who's going to tell our stories and who's going to tell them correctly? Who's not going to misappropriate us? Who's not going to use the culture, to sell items? So for me, it was about being true to the culture, making sure that the culture had a voice, and being as creative as I possibly could. And, with all of those things, it was a perfect storm for me. So I was able to, do things inside of an agency that most wouldn't, because you know, the CEO of the agency was still hands on. He was there every day. He used to walk the halls. He knew everybody's name. So you just don't get that anymore, and not at the level that we were producing. And it was a magical time.
No, that's so cool. And I
Yeah.
mean, just hearing that little bit about, your why, no wonder you're so on fire about what you do. I mean, that's just, going in every day with this is kind of the difference I'm making in the world. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure, you walk away every day feeling super full and invigorated. But yeah, I think, that's something that a lot of people my age kind of struggle to do. Or even like I know when
Hmm.
I, look at the future, I'm like, am I gonna be in what I'm doing right now, or like have I just not found the thing yet? So it's really I'm always curious to hear how you kind of got into your thing, and that makes
Yeah.
a ton of sense. So now there's like the whole other aspect of it, and I think this is relevant to anybody who might be a little bit into their career and is thinking, do I want to make that jump to management? How did
Hmm.
like running an agency comes with just being a boss of a bunch of people too once you start to
Hmm.
scale up. How did you decide? Like, was there anything in your career that made you realize, like, hey, I'm good at managing people, or was it just something that always kind of came natural for you?
No, it was natural for me, and just to go back a little bit, I never looked for a position. I just kept being who I was, and I just kept doing what I was doing, and the positions came. So the promotions came. I never looked to see if I was going to be the next CD or whatever it was. It just came. If I would have slid over to production, that's what I would have did. Because, again, you in small agencies like that, you put your hands on everything, so you learn a little bit of everything. So for me, just being understanding people, understanding how people move, understanding that to be able to help people become better, to help people understand their potential. It was natural to me. It was nothing that I looked for to try and conquer. I never got into the politics and mechanics of position. It didn't really matter to me. The point was I got to do something that a lot of people didn't have an opportunity to do, which was get up, come in at 10:30, uh, wear jeans, kicks, gym shoes. I was expected to wear that, just relaxed. We we were the startup guys before there were startups. We were those guys walking around with the t-shirts and the jeans, and just really just being relaxed, and being among a peer group that most people don't even have a chance to be around, like being around some of the greatest minds, some of the greatest creative minds, actors, actresses, entertainers, and not fanning out over them, but you're literally their peer, and you're working with them, and they need you as much as you need them. So understanding that mechanic is a little different, and operating at that level is a little different. And once you get it, it's kind of hard to go back. So to that, growing inside of a leadership position was natural to me, and I didn't look for it. It just came to me, and the biggest part is I accepted it. I accepted the position, and being here as a CEO, it is a lot different, because I'm not in the space where I came from as much. I tell my people all the time, my pen isn't as sharp as it used to be, because I'm just not using it. But I'm using other pieces that are important to the puzzle. And again, growing and understanding and still being able to motivate. That's the biggest part. Can I motivate somebody? Can I make them feel good about what they're doing? Can I make them feel good about the product that they're going to put out? Does a client feel good at the end of the day, and does the consumer feel good at the end of the day? So it's all natural for me.
No, that's so cool, and I think there's definitely something to be said about like some people are just kind of seems like born to help other people, manage other people, and
Hmm.
some people like it's just not their thing. So I don't think one way or the other you're better or worse, but it totally goes to show that like some people are just born with it. Now, the other side of it is you definitely can get better at leadership and learn leadership. So I'm
Hmm.
curious now, I know like everybody I've talked to, there's always these moments in their career, maybe at the moment it wasn't a huge ordeal or it was even something that maybe pissed you off, but ended up being a huge learning moment. You look back on it a lot. Is there any of those moments that kind of come to mind for you where looking back on it, it's like, man, I really learned a lot there?
How much time do you have? Um, yeah. There are a ton. There are a ton of moments. I still learn them every day. Like there's not a day where I don't walk away smarter than when I walked in. Um, it's for me, those moments are like guideposts, to help me. If I ever look back, I kind of understand where I came from. And one in particular, if I had to give an example, one in particular would be uh, work for a piece of business. I pitched it. We won it. The contract was like almost $8 million, something like that. We're ready to start the work, and it's just silence. It's, okay, maybe they're just preparing. Maybe I don't know what's going on. So after about 2 weeks, I circle back with the client, and the project went away. Now this is like maybe my third year. No, this is my fourth year at Boulevard. $8 million piece of business in your fourth year is monumental. It could take you to the moon. And it was right there in my hands. Congratulations, email, everything. And then it was just taken away because of one man's decision. And there's nothing wrong because that's that man's company. So, it was his decision to make. But what it taught me was, number one, don't count, don't put it in the bank before it gets in the bank. um, and understand some things have nothing to do with you. It's just part of the business. And as you move into business, um, you have to be ready for almost anything. And disappointment is one of those things that will come consistently. You'll be disappointed almost every day in something. But you have to understand not to take that personal. It has nothing to do with you sometimes. And sometimes it does. But when it doesn't, you just take your L and you keep pushing. And when it does have something to do with you, you learn from your mistake and just don't repeat it. This
No,
stuff is
yeah.
really, man. This stuff is really simple, man. This is not we complicate advertising, and it is really a 1+1 notion. It is
Yes,
not.
that
It's not difficult at all.
I couldn't agree more. And that was
Yeah.
one of my main reasons for even just starting the show in the first place was like, man, every like it's so hard for people to figure out, kind of how to get their stuff going at the beginning. But if you
Yeah.
talk to the right people and have the right conversations, like you said, it really is just simple math.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's you know, it, if you just look at it on the surface level, it's what can I do to help you um, make your life better, either emotionally or literally through this product. Um, and just the thought of buying the product may make you feel good, and that's okay too. You may not even have a need for it, but the point is you buy it because it makes you feel good, and being able to just showcase that piece of material and just give it a light to shine on and give it a scenario that you didn't see it before, give it a lane that you never even looked at it before. It's really simple, it's not hard. But for whatever reason we like to complicate these things and make the brands a little more aspirational than they really are sometimes.
And that's coming from the creative guy who's working in it every day. Me in my
Yeah.
performance media seat, I see some of this creative work and I am like, oh my God, like how did they come up with that?
Yeah. Yes. Uh, uh, it's, there's a lot of nights at a bar, poolside on the shoot. You know, people do whatever they need to do, whatever vice it is. Sometimes you do it, and a lot of times it's just really a mirror. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but I'm literally all right off of Woodward, so I get to see culture every day. There's bike culture that's going past now, but it's really a mirror, if you understand how to hold up a mirror and reflect it, you know, you a lot of the stuff that you see is just a projection of somebody, a snap of somebody's life. And that's why a lot of times you'll see creatives that take it personal. And we get dinged for, you know, emotions. Like, why are you so emotional about this? Well, it's because you just told me, my grandmother didn't do that, and my grandmother clearly does that every day, and she buys Pepsi every day, and that's the way she drinks it every day. And you're telling me that's not true, So it's those kind of things where we get, when you a reflection of your life, you get to see that and you get to show that, and creatives, that's how they get there. They just hold a mirror up to the world and hold a mirror up to themselves and just show that reflection in a 30-second increment.
That's a great way to put it. And yeah, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Just a quick 30-second increment and on to the next one.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
Stitching it together.
yeah, for real. Now, one thing I can tell is big for you, Fran, is obviously culture. You obviously are a big culture guy. We've
Hmm.
chatted a little bit before the show and you've brought it up. So I really want to just hear because, it's something you definitely learn about as you get into your career and you get into the city that you're going to work in and
Hmm.
everything like that. How has culture kind of become such an important part of your life? And, how does it kind of help you move forward in your day to day?
I mean, culture is life. Like, there's no. I think because the way this country has positioned culture, and because of our history in this country, culture has been negated to color, and is furthest from the truth. Skateboard culture is different than bowlers. Bowlers are different than boaters, and they all carry all color, the spectrum of color inside of it. Golf, just name any culture, it's around it. Country music, hip hop, it's all culture. So when you take the color out of it, and this is just, again, this is easy math. When you take the color out of culture, you respect it more, and you see that it is there is a common ground, regardless of what color you are, if you understand the culture and the culture that people live in. If you're a lover of music, no matter if it's opera, or if it's reggae, you love music and it does something to you. That's a culture. So understanding the commonality in the culture and looking past the facade of what we see, which is color, it helps you understand that this is just the mechanics of life, and being able to present that is my passion. Being able to show you that we are really alike, more than you know, if you get out the lens that you're looking through.
No, definitely. And I mean, that's gotta be so helpful in just like your day-to-day outlook too. Like I'm sure you're,
Mhm.
walking around with a much more positive perspective thinking about that rather than like there's so much negativity and hate out in the world right now or even just on social media. So I see how that perspective can definitely be like, a game changer for your day to day.
Yeah, now it's just convincing the general market agency of that same thing. Like, they defend that to you just have no idea of how much they defend culture. And now, now it's starting to become something else. Now they are getting rid of, they're even getting rid of the word culture. They're just calling it growth markets. Well, what does that really mean? It's a lot of dog whistle terms, because culture is segmented again. So when they look at my agency, they see sometimes they see an African American agency. No, it's just African American owned. 70% of what we do is general market work, but we're able to provide a lens that most general market agencies can't, because they only look at what they see in front of them. Whereas I'm showing the commonality through all of it. I'm trying to get to that one piece that everybody can relate to, and let it be timeless. Let that learning be timeless. So, some people see it for what it is, and some people, will battle it. But that's the business side that comes out a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting to even, kind of seems like you have, your business just built around even the whole culture piece of just like, I've never heard it said like that before. I want to create something that kind of brings everybody together and that everybody can relate to. That
Hmm.
I think that's what this world needs.
No, absolutely. I mean, and if if you really see it for what it's worth, um, it would change your thinking. It would in a lot of ways. And it will, obviously be more you'll be more accepting of others. And really more accepting of yourself, because a lot of times, we protect ourselves through culture because we don't want to expose something about ourselves. So we use our culture as the, as the gatekeeper, so to speak. When in reality, it's not. We're not much different. We all want the same things, man. Like everybody wants the same things at the end of the day. And if you understand that, you will understand, in terms of this industry. If you understand that, you will understand how things are really sold, why people really buy, the motivation between why people buy the things they do, and it's more common than you know.
Definitely, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure we could sit here and talk about that kind of stuff for hours.
yeah,
There's
days, yeah,
so much that goes into it. Yeah, just
yeah.
so many things I'm sure you've learned along the way. It's crazy. Before we talk about it too long, though, I did want to talk
Hmm.
about too. I know you're working on some pretty cool stuff right now.
Hmm.
Would love to just kind of hear as we kind of get. I want to let everybody know, kind of what Boulevard does and that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But if you can just share, what are some of the more recent, some cool stuff you've gotten to work on at Boulevard?
Yeah, man. Like we have gotten into this space, and again, not looking for it. It just started coming to us, and we started understanding it and accepting it. But we're starting to get into the space of agitation and disruption, meaning we have startups coming to us and asking us, hey, I know this part of what I do, but I don't know how to market it, either through getting seed money or launching. So we have some really cool startups that we're working with now, without giving away, without giving away the recipes. But we're working with, we just landed this one. It's a startup that is trying to save, is trying to take the the danger out of flying, so to speak. So it's giving you an AI co-pilot. So they're creating an AI co-pilot that is hands above, more valuable than the actual person flying the plane. Meaning because there's human error in a lot of the crashes. And we're talking about the little, like the Cessnas and those kind of planes. And there's a lot of hobby pilots. There's a lot of people that fly private, and they have valuable cargo in them, people's families and those kind of things. And they're trying to alleviate the pilot error in it. So they're creating an AI tool that alleviates that. Then this is other one, that is more altruistic in nature. Your rollover minutes, you don't know what happens to them when it comes to a wireless plan. You don't know what happens to your wireless, your rollover minutes. Well, they figured a way to take those minutes, and you're able to donate those minutes to somebody that needs them. So it's things like that that's really trying to disrupt, not culture, but they're trying to disrupt how we see the service, how we see, it serving. There's another startup that we're working with, and we're on the advisory board of that one as well. And she is taking the hardest test, standardized test like LSAT, or if you're taking a test to be a doctor or whatever it might be. She's going back to the roots of how we learn, and she's using phonics to teach some of the hardest standardized tests. So, and all of these, everybody I'm talking about is in their 30s and late 20s. So, these entrepreneurs are not here just to get money, get paid. They're here really to disrupt. And I love it. Like they are, they are here for it. They want all the smoke and they're not afraid of it. Um, and we're here for it as well and try and help them. So those are the some of the cool things that we're really working through. And we have a cool little brand too that we're partnering with that combines two cultures, which is food and music, and they put that together through a 6-course meal. So all of these cool little brands that right now are little in its infancy, but it's no telling where where these brands will be. I don't know if it's going to be the next Google. I have no idea. But again, being at the ground level and understanding the creativity that they're putting behind it and the passion that they're putting behind it and the love that they're putting behind it, not just for themselves, but to help others along the way. Excuse me. So those are some cool things that we're working through, man. This is a really cool space to do it.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. I'm sure you're definitely then getting a little bit scrappy with some of your ideas, working with these startups and getting
Yeah.
stuff off the ground. It's definitely like, sometimes you just got to do stuff maybe like kind of the old-fashioned way or just, like boots on the ground type of style work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same mechanics, like no matter, this AI tool that these guys are doing for aviation, at the end of the day, you still have to sell it the same way. It's still a lemonade stand. Again, going back to it, it's still one plus one. No matter what they do, no matter how they do it, no matter what it does, it's still one plus one, you know. Um, and to see brands really get into that notion, like I'm a real big fan of Red Bull. And one of the things that really made me a fan, it wasn't a bar, but it was this guy. I don't know if you saw this, but a guy took a NASA shuttle, like the tip of the rocket, the capsule. Sorry, he took the capsule up to the stratosphere, where if it was literally a minute or two more before he jumped out of this thing, he would have been lost in space. And Red Bull was slathered all over the capsule, right? Um, because their line at the time was, "We give you wings." So they literally took that um, to the last layer of Earth, and the guy that did it, it was the longest it was the longest jump in the parachute. He had a spacesuit on and everything, and the reason why he did it was to show his son that anything is possible. When you have brands that's backing that, when you're doing that kind of work, it surpasses advertising. It just surpasses it, and it helps you see that brands can be a part of something great. They can mean something. It can mean more than sales. And Red Bull has been, they've been killing it ever since. Like anything, Red Bull owns adrenaline, period. Even more than sports teams, even more than racing, Red Bull owns adrenaline because they're on the boulevard, they're on the street, they're in the culture. And the culture, they can go from skateboarding to DJing, and nobody's gonna question it, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
they
it's pretty wild. And then even at like a classy event, you'll still see some Red Bull
you'll
mixers
still see
for
Red Bull,
cocktails.
right? Right, and gear, swag, merch, whatever. But they're able to transcend. And when the brand can transcend, that's the next level. Nike did it back in the day. But again, it goes back to culture. They were on the streets. They were on the basketball courts. There were all these places that you wouldn't. They were in the crevices of culture. And again, you go see some Red Bull advertising. It could be almost anything. It could be bowling, which is again the culture, or skateboarders. It was a guy that just did the tallest vert ramp. I think it was like 12 stories high. It was crazy. Right. He
Yeah,
literally
it's insane.
jumped off 12 stories on a vert ramp, and Red Bull sponsored it. But here's the crazy part now. Right alongside that ramp was Prada. Now, how's this luxury brand tied to this transcendent brand? And why are they together? And you're starting to see that even more. You're starting to see it through they just, I don't know if you've seen it, but Audemars watches, they just did a collab with Swatch. So you have one of the, you have them their $1 million watch teaming up with Swatch because they want to be a part of culture so bad. And people were waiting outside for like a week, literally waiting outside a week for this watch to come in because they want to be a part of culture. So I think brands now are trying to transcend a little bit. And, even though a lot of the agencies don't want to talk about culture, that's where the smart brands are. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
no.
why Pharrell is with Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, no. I
Dapper
mean,
Dan is with
that's
Gucci. So
yeah,
yeah.
that's a great point, and is so many great examples too. Like you would never
Hmm.
expect to see some of these brand collabs and just brands, like you say, really delving into culture and just doing, getting right into it. It's
Hmm.
so cool. Yeah, like you'd never expect to see Red Bull and Prada at the same event, especially where somebody's, jumping a skateboard. So
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy what's happening now.
yeah, for
And I,
real.
yeah, and I love it.
Definitely. So before I at the end, I always kind of wrap up with just like quick little rapid fire segment where we'll go through some fun questions, go through some ones, where we're providing some value to students. But I got one more for you that's a little bit more
Hmm.
on the long form side.
Hmm.
I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I love asking this to everybody I get the chance to talk to is just, if you could go back and, given all the crazy stuff going on in the industry right now, but if you could go back to, when you were that 20 to 22-year-old version of yourself and you're super hungry, super hyped up to go, and I'll work as hard as I can. But you're also so ignorant at that point. You have really no
Hmm.
idea what's out there, how the world
Hmm.
works, that kind of thing. What would you say is the number one thing that you tell yourself to change, and what difference would that have made now?
That's a good question. Um, I think I would have told myself, um, quit internalizing it and understand, um, it's a moment in time. It's not that personal. Um, I think I would have got away from the divisiveness that our industry can bring sometimes, meaning creative against account, those kind of things. I think I would have just listened a lot more. I would have been just as passionate, but I think I would have been more passionate with a purpose as opposed to passionate as a personality trait.
Yeah, that is some great advice, and
Yeah.
that like I imagine 22-year-old you would probably be like, I don't know about all that. So
Oh
I
man,
think
I was a rebel rouser, bro. I was on fire, and I literally got fired. I did, and then opened up a coffee house. So I just, just kept moving.
it happens. Yeah, everybody has, their bumps in the road, but I
Yeah.
think that's super refreshing to hear from you though. Like, that you would have told yourself all that stuff because I think that's a lot of the same thing that people my age kind of deal with is like you do have a lot of bumps when you're at this age. You get shot down a lot. You mess up because you're
Hmm.
ignorant and you're so right. You can't internalize it. You can't sit there and beat yourself up. Like kind of just got to brush it off your shoulder and keep moving. And
Yeah.
also moving with a passion too, like I said
Hmm.
earlier, it can be kind of hard to find your niche and your passion and finding something to really get behind and know your why of why you're showing up every day. It definitely like there's something to be said about it rather than like
Hmm.
you said, just trying to kind of force it as a personality. So killer
Yeah.
advice there. And now I'm excited to get into the rapid fire segment. This is
Yeah.
how I
Let's
like to
do it.
wrap up the show.
Let's
So
do it.
first one, yeah, we'll start with the fun one to kick things off. What was your first vehicle? I know we're in the Detroit auto scene so much. First vehicle, and what did that lead to? What are you driving now, Fran?
That's hilarious. My first vehicle was a Ford Escort because I used to be a DJ and I had to have seats that folded. And so I got a Ford Escort. Now I'm actually in a Kia. I'm in a a Kia K900, and it's the last that they make of it. It's like a V8. Is it's an interesting car that you would never have thought that Kia made a luxury car, and it's actually a 2015. And I have a passion for older cars now. For what I just feel like new cars are like I feel like I'm being monitored. So
Yeah, the tech
you know,
nowadays is pretty
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I feel like I'm driving the computer. It's like nah, you know. And then I have a 1975 um, that I'm forever restoring, but I have a 1975 Jag XJS. I'm sorry, XJC, and yeah, that's a fun one. So just getting into feeling the vibration of a motor, simple, no radio. I'm yearning to get back to that.
For real, it's about to be the best time of year in Michigan to be going on those cruises too.
It is.
Heck yeah. Now, this one, a little bit more on the work side of things. What would you
Yeah.
say right now is the number one learning resource that you'd recommend that students or people my age just might be sleeping on or not know about?
Um, and a OG in the agency, an elder. You know, talk to somebody that's been there. Talk to somebody with some gray hair.
Great advice and something that I think like sometimes my guests struggle with this one because they're like trying to rack through all the websites they use and
Hmm.
everything. But that is like that's kind of been my secret is like
Yeah.
find somebody with some gray hair who's been doing it for a minute
Yeah.
and ask them what's
Yeah.
up.
And they will tell you, and you will see that is just returning back to where they're from. They've seen that before, so.
For real. All
Mhm.
right, now kind of back to a little more on the fun side.
Yep.
Another pretty relevant Detroit question here. What is the best pizza in Detroit?
Man, I don't eat cheese or pizza. I don't eat meat.
Oh,
But from what I remember, um, I would have to say, and then this is relatively new. I would have to say Sapinos.
okay. I think I'm not hip to Supino, so I'm gonna have to try that.
What? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no.
it's an old school. And the cat that owns it is a really cool dude. Um, but it's one in Eastern Market, and then there's one on Woodward down the street in Midtown, and it's old school New York style. But I'm kind of partial to New York because my father used to live there, so I kind of grew up on New York pizza. Every summer I would go there and get pizza like that. But Sapino's, man, is one of my favorites. Yep, hands down.
Heck yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to try to check that out.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, to kind of get back to it, what would you
Hmm.
say right now? This is something you talk about a ton at the beginning of your career. What is the number one soft skill you'd recommend people my age really leaning in on right now to make a difference?
Soft skill.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, listening. Just listening, man. Just listening, taking it all in, um, and understanding. What you're hearing, understanding how the puzzle pieces come together, and that's just become a great listener.
No,
It'll
this
get you
is yeah,
far.
some great advice. And I think,
Yeah.
when you're early in your career, you're definitely trying to make a name for yourself and trying to get your work
Hmm.
out there. So there can be a lot of moments where, you're blasting out to the audience, but
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
the best move is to just kind of be quiet and listen.
Yeah. You're trying to find your voice, which you should, and you want to be heard. But at the end of the day, you have to have something to tap into to say. So you have to have some information. Get your puzzle pieces. Get your puzzle pieces
Definitely.
before, you know what I'm saying? Get your puzzle pieces
Yeah.
first.
Okay, so on the flip of that, what would you say is a number one hard skill that everybody my age should really be focusing on right now?
I think right now, um, believe it or not, the mechanics, like the brick and mortar of writing, you know, just understanding how to express yourself on paper, because it will help you as you articulate yourself. So understand how to write out a plan, how to write copy correctly. Don't lean into the devices. Don't lean into the shortcuts. Get back to the brick and mortar, pen and paper. Put pen to paper, and
That is
that's a manifestation tool too. That just helps you. It's a rhythm to writing, and there's a reason, why pen and paper is still here.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that last part about like the manifestation because one, like my generation is way too getting used to like using chat or Gemini or whatever you use to just
Yeah.
any idea that pops in your head, all right, let's whip it
Yeah.
up with AI.
Yep.
But the other part of that is like there is definitely some power in writing stuff down. Like some things
Hmm.
I haven't written down and then I'm like, oh man, you forget about it. But I have written some stuff down and then it comes true and you got the piece of paper you wrote it on. You're like, huh, there's something weird there.
Yeah, and something you can hand down. Like I only get moleskin. Black moleskins is what I've probably been collecting. I would say at least 15 years now. And it's just a stack of them. And to go back into them and look at like what was my thought process, when I was in my 30s. What was my thought process when I was in my 20s? And just to be able to see it and to see the commonality in who you are and then how you've grown. So pen and paper, man. Get back to the
Heck yeah,
basics.
I
Master the
love it.
basics.
Yeah, I love it. So last one here, one on a fun one.
Mhm.
Dead or alive, who are the four people that you would just do anything to have a sit down dinner with?
My grandmother, my grandfather, those two have passed away. Um, Probably Muhammad Ali, and I would say that's a good one. I would say James Baldwin. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think grandma and grandpa would like that table probably.
Oh, for sure. It'd be a good dinner table. Be
I
interesting.
can't
Cause
imagine
now we
for
wouldn't get a
real.
word in. We wouldn't get a word in with Ali sitting there, but it would be, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I definitely would love to be a fly on the wall for that dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you again, Fran. That kind of wraps up everything we have for you. I know I learned a ton, and I'm sure everybody listening has a ton of great takeaways. Like I always say, go back and listen to the last hour of this and start taking some of the stuff Fran said and implementing it in your day to day. And it's almost like a guarantee you'll start seeing the difference. I mean, you don't become an agency owner and the next president of Adcraft just kind of by surprise. You have to be intentional with what you do. And, this is somebody who's sharing what they do with us. So I would definitely, take that advice and run with it. So thank you again, Fran. It was awesome getting the opportunity to interview you, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your night. And I, hope we stay in touch. Would love to chat with you soon again.
Absolutely, man. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And join Adcraft.
Yes, sir. Yes. Final plug. Join Adcraft
Yeah.
and add Fran on LinkedIn. About to be
Yeah,
the
there
next
you go.
president. He's a
Yep.
good
Yeah,
connection to
yeah.
have.
And I will respond. I promise.
Heck yeah, there you go, guys. The future president of Adcraft, hit him in the DMs. It's a great person to know in the industry. All right, that's all we
Appreciate
got.
it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.